Hello, this is Not a Spring Chick, and today we're going to talk about the credit card crunch. Ooh, hopefully you're not one of those people that are affected by it, but hopefully you're going to learn some different ways to look at your credit cards and understand what's going on. Because with everything going on with the mortgage meltdown, or Freddie Mac meltdown, and everything that's going on, credit cards are saying it's going to be the next meltdown. Now, for most of you, you probably have credit cards. What's the average amount of credit cards people have?
I think
too many.
They got too many. I think they've got about 6.
About 6 credit cards, and what are their average balances?
About $10,000.
Okay, so I know. And if you have credit cards, you're feeling the crunch. Some people pay their credit cards off every single month. Congratulations, you are probably
Among the minority.
Yes. So congratulations to you. And funny thing is, you may realize that even though you pay them off every month, sometimes the credit cards really don't like that. They would really prefer for you to have carryover balances, because that's where they make their money. So if you've got all these credit cards, one of the things you're probably doing is trying to pay them down. That's what most of the people talk about, is how to pay your credit cards down. That's not really what we're going to talk about today.
But isn't it impossible on minimum balance to pay them down?
Well,
on minimum payments?
It practically is. They changed the requirements, was it a couple years ago, so that your minimum monthly payment had to pay the interest. Is it an interest and a little bit more? But even so,
They change the interest rates continually, which makes it almost an impossibility. At least that's what I know from my credit card problems.
yeah, and I think one of the biggest challenges with the credit cards is managing the credit cards, managing the interest rate, because your interest rate may be 0% at the beginning, but it's only for a certain period of time, and it may go as high as, I don't know what the...
It's 23, 24%.
24%, yeah. Now, there's a big difference between 0 and 23%, but what that also means is if you start with something that's a very low balance, like, low interest rate at 0%, that amount can change. It can, well, see, part of it is there's always that little fine print. So even though you might have gotten a balance transfer, cash advance, or something at 0% interest for 6 months, a year, something like that, there's this fine line that says that they do have the possibility of changing it if you're late on your payment. Oh, also, they can raise your interest rate. Now, I don't remember if this happens on the 0%, so make sure, because each credit card differs.
It's also tied to the prime interest rate, too.
Yeah, some are tied to the prime, but for the fluctuation. But also, if you are behind on one of your credit card payments, it can also affect, well, a credit card that you're not behind on. And you're wondering how that can happen.
Actually, a totally different company, too.
Yeah, totally different company. I know, and you're wondering, how in the world can that happen? Well, they can do it. So here's a couple things. One is get your payment in on time. So how do you make sure you get it in on time if you're doing it via mail? Well, that's kind of hard.
They say 2 weeks before it's due.
Okay. Now, he's saying 2 weeks before it's due, and that is, if you mail it 2 weeks in advance before it's due, you have time to check on it before your due date to do something. So if they haven't received it, then you can do something else. The post office has suggested that you can also do overnight delivery, which you can. Now, those are typically different addresses.
Yeah.
And also
priority mail.
Priority mail. Now, here's the trick: is when a credit card company receives the payment at their office, they do not have to post it right away. Ooh, you didn't know that. Well, just like you, when you get home and you've got the mail there, say you got it on Monday and you were busy, so you didn't open it until Wednesday. Will credit card companies do something like that?
Well, don't you know somebody that just had that problem?
Mm-hmm. So the only way that I know of to get around that is payment online, or if you go in and physically make a payment. Now, most of us...
Okay, auto payment from your checking account.
Well, here's the thing on auto payment with the checking account. It's really good because it's effective. But sometimes if you're trying to manage your finances...
Yeah, keep track.
Sometimes credit card companies will change the due date.
Yeah,
Oh.
Okay, we know one, American Express is really good on changing due dates.
Yeah, so maybe Now this is if you're running a really tight budget. Okay, so maybe you thought your payment was due on the 15th of the month, and they change it so it's due on
The
the 7th of the
the
month.
7th of the month, or they can back it up to like the last of the month.
Yeah, so if you have an automatic credit card payment, guess what happens?
That's right. You don't either. You can get, okay. You can be double hit if they back it up. You can be double hit in a month on it.
That's right. So if it's coming out of your checking account, this is where you really need to make sure you have a cash reserve. So if you deplete your regular balance, we'll dip into your cash reserve. Now, I don't know about you. I don't like to do that because, well, actually, I do have the cash reserve. I don't like to dip into the cash reserve because there's an advance fee to go into the cash reserve, and they also charge you interest from the day, which of course is what you're trying to avoid paying. Let's see. So on the credit card statements, make sure you read, and I cannot stress this enough, make sure you read it, make sure you track it, and make sure you check what they have done. And nowhere is this more important than checking your payments. For example, and I'll use myself as an example, I'm not going to tell you which companies, made a payment to a credit card company. They told me, after I checked it, because I'm going, why are there interest charges? They said that your payment did not go through. Well, according to the statements, the statement went through, the payment went through, but they said it didn't, and they charge you interest, and then they call it a late payment. Well, let's see, you got extra fees for a late payment, and then you got extra fees for interest rate that entire time. So you might have a lot more expensive bill than you were expecting to pay.
I know a person personally, $250,000 in their lifetime on late payments alone.
Ooh.
That was the fees on the late payments.
Ooh. And they add up. The other part is if you fall behind, I'm going to give you this example because it's really important, is you're paying 0% interest or 2% or 3%. When they up your credit card rate, your interest rate that maybe is typically tied to Prime Plus, if they increase it, there's nothing to say like a mortgage where it might be a fixed increment. Say you're paying 2%, that jump up might be from 2% to 12%. Or 12% to 24%. So make sure you read that because like one of my credit cards, and I check these all the time, is I made the payments, we discussed it as to how it would be applied, and when I got my statement, they didn't apply it like I asked for them to apply it, and so they charged me an extra $600 worth of interest. I know, that sounds, I know.
It's a lot of gas.
It's a lot of gas, huh?
Yep.
It really is. So make sure you check it, make sure you contact them, and don't be afraid to ask them. Don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to question. The other part is, when I say don't be afraid to question, is if you're close, you think you're behind, if you think you're like one payment behind, make sure that you ask because maybe they're not applying your payments like you thought. You might get extra interest charges, or they may count your payment as being late. I know it sounds like a lot of management, and sometimes, actually the best thing is probably either to pay them early if you can. If things are tight, make sure you put it on a calendar. But also, when you make the payment inside, online, make sure you read it because sometimes it has to be by a certain time, like 2 p.m.
Yep.
on a day, whether it's Eastern Standard.
And if you do it on a Friday, don't count until it Monday.
So when it comes to credit cards, read, track. But for now, this is not a spring check, and there's much more coming up on credit cards. Till then, we're here yesterday, today, and tomorrow.